Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about the Forefront 5. Now, what is the Forefront 5? Um, these are incredibly important tabletop role-playing games, and the more I think about it, I think that these 5 tabletop role-playing games are the actual real competitors for Dungeons and Dragons going forward. Now, there are games that are bigger than these, no question. And there are games that have a higher prominence than these 5 games. But the reason why I think these are Dungeons and Dragons real competitors is the pattern around these games. They all share certain attributes. All 5 of these games share a specific set of attributes. And I think that set of attributes forges them as Dungeons and Dragons real competitors going forward. Now, why are we talking about these today? Well, there's a real good reason why we're talking about these. I would like to say, oh, hey, who are Dungeons and Dragons real competitors, right? Well, the reality is we don't really know how many books Dungeons and Dragons sells. Those numbers are literally nowhere. Okay, there's a few like numbers about what they sold in the 80s and 90s, but starting in third edition, no one tracks those numbers that is willing to share them, and they are gone. Same thing with Pathfinder. Pathfinder's another big commercial game, but the reality is we have no idea what the real numbers are on sales for these books. None, right? And there's a few companies that collect a little bit of data here and there, but the reality is it's a mystery. None of the companies that have this data are willing to share it, right? So what we as the tabletop role-playing game community are forced to do is look at patterns. That's all there is. There's no real numbers, right? There's just patterns, and I pay incredibly close attention to the tabletop role playing game industry, and I've noticed this pattern, and the Forefront 5 all fit this pattern. So I want to talk about it today, and I'm saying that this pattern makes these 5 games Dungeons and Dragons actual real competitors. So let me present it to you. Let's go. All right. So first of all, let me share with you the pattern. Okay. What are the Forefront 5? The Forefront 5 are 5 tabletop role playing games that all fit this pattern. They are all a freestanding role playing game, and that means they're independent, and they all represent a singular world. Okay, that you a singular um, game, and we'll talk about world in a minute. But they're all a freestanding tabletop role playing game. They all are one book play, right? So each one of these systems, you can buy one book. That book is a freestanding tabletop role playing game, and that one book does anything Dungeons and Dragons does. Anything. Okay, adventures, one shots, campaigns, all of whatever you can do with D&D, you could do with these games. Okay, every single one of these went on Drive Through RPG within 1 year of its 1E edition. Every single one of these has been on Drive Through RPG for 3 years or more, and every single one of these has been top 100 on Drive Through RPG since its 1E, and not one single one of them have dropped off the top 100 for less than 3 months, for anything less than 3 month span. And I think it's possible not one of them has dropped off ever, right? I'm not positive of that, but I'm positive none of these have dropped off for spans longer than 3 months, right? Which means for everything published on Drive Through RPG, these 5 games have tooth and clawed their way and never dropped off the top 100 for a span of less than 3 months, for a span longer than 3 months. Okay, and then also no other tabletop role playing games have achieved the same, and not a single source book has ever achieved the same. All right, so what are these 5 games? Let's talk about them. Okay. All right, so first and foremost, and by the way, we're going to talk about all 5 games. I'm going to put them oldest to newest, and I'm going to give you a little bit of information on each one. Okay. The oldest is Stars Without Numbers. By the way, I'm not showing you 1E. I'm showing you the current cover for each one. Okay. Stars Without Numbers. It's by Kevin Crawford, and actually Stars Without Numbers. It's a science fiction game. So I'll give you the deets on it. Stars Without Numbers came out in November 2010. It's by far the oldest. It was created by Kevin Crawford, and it is listed on Wikipedia. We're going to talk about Wikipedia for each one of these. I'm a huge fan of Wikipedia. I literally donate to Wikipedia. I think it's one of the best things the internet has ever created. And a lot of people talk a lot of smack about Wikipedia, but the reality is, as increasingly as institutions are harder and harder to get any reliable information out of, Wikipedia continues to just grow in value and go higher and higher and higher, right? And they're used, it is one of the greatest sources of knowledge on the planet now. There's no two ways about that. And so I'm going to tell you the Wikipedia status of every single one of these games, okay? Because I think it's interesting. So it is listed on Wikipedia. It does not have its own page, but it is listed on Wikipedia, Stars Without Numbers. All right, so next one, okay? Dungeon World. This is powered by the Apocalypse. This is really interesting. I think this is the game that made powered by the Apocalypse. So Dungeon World, in my opinion, powered by the Apocalypse, a series of other games, would not exist without Dungeon World. And everybody, I know what you're all saying. Oh, what about D. Vincent Baker, right? The guy who created he didn't create Powered by Apocalypse. He created Apocalypse World, a game that absolutely nobody cared about except like 4 bears in the woods and one dude, that's it, right? Dungeon World drop, right? Powered by the Apocalypse went through the roof. Dungeon World, in my opinion, made Powered by the Apocalypse. Let's talk about who made this game. This game came out in June 2012. It was made by Adam Cobell and Sage Latura. Okay, it has its own Wikipedia page, a full page all about it. Now you see it, right? There's a big asterisk. There's an asterisk right by Adam Cobell. Okay, in this video, I am talking about Dungeon World, the game. We cannot talk about Adam Cobell in this video because it would take the whole video, right? So I'm fully aware of the Adam Cobell situation. Not talking about this in this video. I'm just talking about the Dungeon World game. Okay? All right. So let's move past. Now, if you have any questions about Adam Cobell and why there's an asterisk there, you will find many videos on YouTube about it. So yeah, there's lots of other source material. I'm not even gonna touch that. All right, Dungeon World. Okay, it's a huge game, right? Okay, next, Index Card RPG, and this is 2E, and this is the core. One, I need to give my bias here. This is my favorite role-playing game in the world next to Dungeons & Dragons. I think this is the most brilliant tabletop role-playing game that's ever been created, bar none. Right? This thing it's a world breaker. It is, it's a dream shaker. This thing is rock solid. It is an incredibly good tabletop role-playing game. Let's talk about its details. It was created in December 2016. It was created by Hanker and Farinale, and it has no Wikipedia entry. Literally, if you type in Index Card RPG into Wikipedia, you'll find nothing. Right? I'm not sure why. It has a brilliant, wonderful art style, and this thing it's a work of genius. That's my take. All right. Next, Blades in the Dark by John Harper. This thing is rock solid. Just absolutely brilliant. And it's been, and people love it. All right. It's a kind of little bit steampunk, very supernatural, right? And I'll give you its deets. Came out in January 2017. It is by John Harper. And by, like I said, by John Harper. And it has its own Wikipedia page, which is a big deal. All right. Last one here. Ironsworn, a tabletop role-playing game of perilous quests by Sean Tompkins. Give you the deets. It came out in April 2018. It's by Sean Tompkins, and it is Wikipedia listed. Unlike all the other games on here, this one can also be played solo. Very interesting aspect of the game. It's one of the few games on this list that goes beyond Dungeons and Dragons. You could do every single thing Dungeons and Dragons does with this game, and you could play it solo. Pretty incredible. right? So that is the full list. That is the full list of all of the forefront five. All right, so let's look at real quick. So again, I really think these are the true competitors for Dungeons and Dragons. They're all freestanding tabletop role-playing games. They all have one book play. You buy one book, you could do every single thing you could do with Dungeons and Dragons. They all dropped on Drive-Thru RPG within 1 year of their 1E. They've all been on Drive-Thru RPG for 3+ years. They all have remained top 100 and never had a drop off the top 100 on Drive-Thru RPG for longer than 3 months. And no other tabletop role-playing games have achieved the same as the above. None. Truly incredible. Truly, truly incredible. These are the real competitors for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition. For Dungeons and Dragons, any edition, right, going forward. And I think, these are the ones to watch, right? And I know what you're thinking. You're like, what about Pathfinder? I think Pathfinder's just kind of like it's just a little bit of a broken shadow of Dungeons and Dragons, and I don't think it's really as much of a competitor as any of these games. That's my take. What do you think? Do you think I'm right? Do you think that this pattern, with no metrics to compare games against, is the real determiner of what Dungeons and Dragons' actual real tabletop role-playing game competitor is? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.